Hi guys, this is Mark. In this video, I will talk about database functions, which is a very powerful mechanism that can be used for one of the two things. One, you can transform data that comes from the database when you run a query. And second, you can use it in the conditions that you create with where clause to make them more precise, more elegant, and at times more powerful. I will start with a demonstration of how they work, just with some very basic scenarios, and then we'll go and take a look at the list of all available functions. I will show you where to find them in the documentation, and we'll also play with some additional examples to give you a better idea of the capabilities that exist in Backendless with database functions. Let's start with some basic examples. So here I have the customer table, and as you can see, there is a city column that contains the name of the city where any given customer is from. So here, if I want to transform this data, and for instance, I want to get names of the cities in uppercase. I know it may not make sense, but in some scenarios, in some applications, you just want to get data all in uppercase, for instance. In here, if I go to REST console, to specify a specific column, you would go into columns and /properties and select the properties that you need, such as email and name. But in addition to this, you can also start typing up a function that would be executed by the database and be treated as a separate property. So for instance, my function will be upper. It is one of the functions supported in Backendless. And then the parameter for this function will be the name of the column that I want to target, and it is city. And then just press enter, and that becomes one of the parameters that you are requesting. Well, this parameter is powered by a function, therefore the data that will come back is going to be the name of the city transformed to uppercase. Let's run this query, and as you can see, we got the city in upper cases. However, take a look at the name of the property. It is upper, the same as the name of the actual function, which is not convenient and does not really make sense. But you can click on it again, and here you will get a field where you can type in alias. And here, if we put in city and rerun this query, then now we get city and then the name of that city in the uppercase. This can be anything you want. It doesn't need to be the same as the original column name. So you can say city in uppercase, and now that will be the name of the property. As you can see, city in uppercase. And take a look at what happens with your endpoint URL. So here we have property equals email, property equals name, and now for this property, it includes that string where we use the function, and then it is URL encoded, so all the spaces in here were converted to %20, but it is a string, nevertheless, that identifies the function and the alias name. Since this is a string, then no matter what language you use to write your client side, or if you're using codeless, you would use that string as the argument for the property that you are requesting, and then in there you will specify the function name. So that is the data transformation where you request database to perform that transformation. Now I also mentioned that functions can be used in the where clause, and let me demonstrate how that would work. So going back to data browser, we do have a column called birth date. And in here, these are the birth dates of the people that we have in the customer table. Let's go back to REST console, and let's say that we want to get all the customers where the year of the birth date is, let's say, greater than 1990. For this, there is a function called year, and the argument for that function will be the name of the column. So it is birth date. And then we use the condition greater than 1990. Click get, and now we got all the records where, well, with the properties that we identified, but the condition is that the year is greater than 1990. And then in this case, we're using a function in our where clause. Let me switch to a slide and just go over what functions are available. This is a slide that I used in one of the previous videos, and we said, and then I said in there that the most primitive case for using where clause, you have to have a column name, operator, followed by a value. But now that you know that it is not just column name, it could actually be a function. And to be precise, it really is an expression, because it is not just a single function. You can create expressions that produce a value, and then you apply an operator and whatever the value that it needs to be worked with to work with that expression. In our case, when we used the year, birth date, that was really just a function, but it can get more complex than this, and I will demonstrate how that works as well. All of the functions in Backendless can be put into actually 3 categories. Number 1, it is going to be datetime functions, and there are a lot of them. And most of these functions, they will extract a certain part of your datetime value and return that part, such as for instance, date, time, week, month, quarter, day of month, day of week, day of year, hour, minute, second. All of these will be returning a certain part of the datetime that you specify in the argument through a column name, for instance. The function that is called now will return the current time, which is a timestamp of when that function is executed. So whenever you run a query, then you will get the timestamp, and when you run it a little later, it's going to be slightly different timestamp to represent time at that point of time. Date sub and date add give you an ability to do subtraction or addition for 2 different dates, and it could be a date that is identified by a column name that you put in the argument list and a specific value of the date, or it could be 2 different date time columns, and then the result will be a modified date either through the subtraction or the addition of those 2 values. Then the second category of all the functions are string functions, and here the list is not big. You already saw how the upper function works. The lower function is the reverse of upper. It brings everything to the lower case. Trim will trim spaces of a string value on both left side and right side, where you get the value without any spaces on either side of the value. Reverse will reverse that string, and find and set will find a substring within another string and will return an index of that found substring. The third category are some miscellaneous functions, and there are not a lot of them, but let me show you where you can find a listing of all the functions in our documentation. So when you go to our docs, this is going to be the general structure of the table of contents. When you expand the database API section, scroll down, there will be a section called database functions. So this page talks about using database functions in Backendless, and then this is a list of all the datetime functions with examples and then the values that are being returned. Then this is followed by the string functions, the ones that I mentioned in the slides, and then there are some miscellaneous functions that are also quite powerful, such as if, is null, and so on. So I recommend visiting this page and reading about the functions so you get a better idea of what they are, and I don't think it makes sense in spending time in this video going over every single function, because the documentation provides a lot of information that I would just be repeating. Now, I'll go back to Backendless console just to demonstrate some other uses of functions and how you could apply them in your application. So here, for instance, let me just clear all of this out, and I'll remove the where clause. This is the basic return just by clicking get. And let's say that in our schema, as you already saw, we have the birth date column. Let's say that we want to retrieve our customers, and since we know the birth date, and we can calculate the age of that customer, and calculating the age will be the difference between the current year right now and the year that is in the birth date. And for this, we can use actually an expression that we'll put into the properties, and it will look like this. So we'll say year, and then we will take year from what now returns. So we're using function inside of the function. This will return the year that is right now. And of course, we could hard code 2023, but as time goes on, we don't want to have hard-coded year. So year for now will be dynamic, it will work universally. And then what we will do is we will subtract year that is in the birth date. And if we just leave it as this, but let's also select email and name. So this will work, however, we did not assign an alias to this expression. And as a result, when we run this, you will see that this is the actual age of the customer, represented as the property that is just dash. So I think it took this minus as the property name. So what we will do is we'll just assign an alias that is going to be called age and rerun it. So now for every single customer, we are getting a property called age that is calculated by the database for us. So that's quite useful. Now the same expression right here can actually be used in the where clause. So I just copied it from here into the where clause, and I can say it is greater than, for instance, 50. Click get, and now we got all the customers where the age is greater than 50, and you can see the age right here because we're requesting it as a parameter, but it is also part of the where clause. And again, in the endpoint URL, we have where that literally specifies this value. In the URL, it is URL encoded. And then the property includes this expression as well with the alias age assigned to it. And that's just how it goes. So you can create more complex expressions by using multiple functions. And it particularly becomes useful whenever you need to start performing some operations on the date by extracting whatever the functions return. Very, very powerful, and we will start using this functionality in other videos that are going to be coming. The implications on the code, as I mentioned, whether it is codeless or with code, both in where clause it is a string, and if you're requesting specific property, it is also going to be a string. So what you were doing before, where you in codeless we were providing name of the column as a string, you would basically substitute that with whatever the function is here. I highly recommend testing your functions in REST console to make sure that you are getting the data that you expect before you start doing it in your application. That's all there is to it. Definitely check out the documentation page. It is quite important. And as we go, we are expanding the list of functions provided by the Backendless database. So that page that I shared with you will be updated with additional information as we go. But for now, that's all I have. Thank you for watching this video, and as always, happy coding.